Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second of our Gluten-Free Living Show week seminars and our webinars. I'm delighted to see so many people actually logged in and engaged with us this afternoon for what I think is probably one of the first times you'll have seen our new consultant food advisor. I was going to say in the flesh, Francis, but in the virtual, let's say, more so than anything else. So again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Frances Buckley is our new consultant food advisor here in the Celiac Society, and she works along our consultant dietitian, Sarah Keogh, and our own Sarah Kiernan, as to make up the food and dietetic and nutrition team here in the Society for our members. Frances is a chef, a trained chef, and has 30 plus years experience in that. That means she started when she was 3, and that she is looking all of her 33 years at the moment. Frances then decided that she wanted to go back to college and to study more because she has a particular focus of the deficiencies in the celiac diet and the gluten-free diet for celiac patients. So she has now an MSc in Applied Culinary Nutrition from TU Dublin, and has been working with us closely over the last year and a bit in relation to getting I suppose a more rounded service for our members in relation to setting up your kitchen, how to basically prepare yourself for going out to eat with friends and family in either a catering hospitality environment or in your family's friends and friends' own kitchens. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over now to Frances, and Frances, we look forward to hearing what tips and tricks that you have for the newly diagnosed celiac, be it yourselves as newly diagnosed celiacs or indeed somebody within the family or a friend of a newly diagnosed celiac. So Frances, take it away.
Thanks very much, Jill, and hello to everybody. Good to meet with you all. Today we're going to just look at some tips and some ideas we need to look at around food when you're newly diagnosed, so that we're trying to make it that it's going to be less daunting, that the transition from the diet you've been having before to the diet you have to follow now is not quite as confusing and quite as daunting.
Frances, sorry to jump in ahead of you. I just remembered before we go, I want to start a poll for the people on the call. So the first one I want to launch is this very first question here. What is your knowledge of newly diagnosed and celiac disease? Okay, so if I could get everybody to vote now, please. There should be a voting button appearing on your screen. What is your knowledge of newly diagnosed and celiac disease? You should be seeing any questions that you have as well. You can put them into the chat or in the Q&A. Our panelists there are helping out today. Are you all seeing the poll there? Is everybody seeing the poll? And can I get some people, if you can, you should be able to vote on it there, no problem. I just don't see any, Thank you, Tony, or Tom, I see that. So it's just question 1 at the moment. What is your knowledge of newly diagnosed and celiac disease? Okay. Okay, so look, we'll go with all 4 questions. I can see that seems to be in it. We have a technical issue. So if you want to just go ahead and answer all 4 questions as best as you can, and if you can't, don't worry about it. You can still submit the poll. I'd be just grateful if we could get a feel for that. There you go. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that. Still, we have 84 people on the call, and I'm only getting in between 20 and 27 responses. I know there are questions here that may not necessarily relate to this, so I apologize for that in advance. We had a technical issue this morning. So like I said, just whatever you can answer, I'd be grateful if you could just get that done and dusted. Because it's for one of our interns who's actually studying dietetics and nutrition in UCD, and this will help to inform her studies and our own policy positions going forward, and also to help us give you a better service throughout your membership with the Society. Okay. Nearly half now have answered the question. I appreciate that not everybody may want to answer it. That's fine. I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to finish the poll now because I do realize the time is rattling on, and I do know this is your lunchtime as well, Francis, so I want to just crack on. So I'm going to end the poll now, and I've ended the poll, and I will share the results with everybody towards the end. Francis, if you want to continue there now, apologies for jumping ahead of you.
No problem at all, Jill. Good to get that in. So the first thing we're going to look at today is just how you set up your kitchen at home, because a lot of people newly diagnosed, they may be the only person in the house who is, and will be sharing a kitchen with people who are using products that contain gluten. We're going to look at those, and good safety practice, a lot of it you'll see is quite common sense, but just how you go about it and the best way to go about it is what we're going to look at today. Sorry, we're not moving on now. Sorry, I'm a technical issue here with me.
There's always gremlins on these things, Francis. You just take your time.
I'm doing that arrow and nothing is happening. But anyway.
Try your mouse.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so what is exactly cross-contamination? So cross-contamination in this case is cross-contamination with gluten. So basically, in the very essence of it is we don't want anything with gluten to come in contact with the food that you're going to eat, because even a tiny amount of gluten could make you unwell. Now, cross-contamination happens with preparation, with cooking, and with using utensils. So my topic on it is that it's really about segregation and separation. So have separate worktops, make sure they're cleaned down properly. Make sure you use separate utensils. So keep maybe color coded, get yourself a set of spatulas and spoons and stuff that have a colored handle and only use them for your foods. It's quite likely to happen. A thing that people forget a lot of the time is, cloths and stuff in the kitchen. So again, I would say keep a set of those for your own use. Best practice for cleaning down the work surfaces is we all remove like light dust and light, soiling with a dry towel, and then we must thoroughly clean down the area. The best way to describe this is if you have a bag of open flour and it goes up in the air, then of course it's going to come down on the counter. Some people decide that if they're in a house where there are other people who are not celiacs or not gluten intolerant, that what they will do is they will just use gluten-free flour in the house and that they won't have the other flours. That's a choice all to yourself, I'm sure. The cleaning cloths we've just mentioned already, and the same with knives and utensils. And always wash your hands if you're handling something, and that goes for normal food anyway, between raw and cooked, and between gluten and non-gluten. Segregation and separation again is the key. Store your gluten-free foods separately. Now, what's a good idea there if you're sharing a kitchen is to have plastic boxes with lids sealed on them, and that makes sure that that's not going to happen. Clearly labeled and wrapped very well. Toasters. Now, people have said to me, I need a separate toaster, but I don't have space for a separate toaster. Another option is to use toaster bags. And when you're out eating, it's a good idea to maybe keep a pack of those in your bag, and then you can be sure that your toast is, and don't be afraid to ask people, please, can you do my toast in these toaster bags? That's a way to be sure. Or of course, you can ask, do they have a separate toaster in the establishment? Separate jars of jam and condiments might sound a bit extreme, but also things like your butter dish. You don't want somebody using a knife on bread that has gluten and then using your butter to put, and then the crumbs go onto your bread. So as you said, a small amount can make you sick. So please just keep separate ones and make sure that everyone in the house knows that those ones are just for your use. If you use a deep fat fryer, It's a common misconception that gluten gets destroyed at high heats. It does not. So if you're using a fryer for gluten-free, for chips or for gluten-free goujons or something, just make sure that that fryer is only used for gluten-free food. If you're using an oven, it's not always, it's ideal if you could use a separate oven, but of course that's not always possible. If you have to use the same oven, particularly a fan oven, because the fan circulates possibly the gluten crumbs. So what you do there is you always cook the gluten-free above the other food and cover where possible. When you have to move on to a gluten-free diet, it's very easy to get a little bit kind of, oh, what can I eat? What can't I eat? But a thing I think is really good to do is look at your current diet. You don't have to change absolutely everything in your diet. There's an awful lot of food naturally gluten-free and an awful lot that's safe to eat. So our book and our website gives all of the the naturally gluten-free foods. And there you can see which ones in your own diet. You can go through your day and just take a look and say, okay, actually, I'm really surprised how much of what I eat is actually fine. And then just identify which foods we need to change. So the foods we need to be careful about. So we've talked about the naturally gluten-free foods, things where we can find what's kind of termed hidden gluten. It's not intentionally hidden, but things that we can find them in, which we need to read the labels very clearly. And because the allergens have to be highlighted as they are looking in this slide in bold, then you'll find it written in bold, wheat, rye or barley. So sauces, processed foods, sauces like ketchups, dressings, those kind of ones. The Celiac Society of Ireland, of course, don't recommend ones that say have a may contain gluten warning on the pack. From a health point of view, the diet is, the gluten-free diet can be lower due to the cereals that replace the wheat. They can be lower in things like magnesium, definitely lower in fiber, folate, iron and zinc. So trying to incorporate foods into your diet that will boost those levels, particularly of fiber. Beans and dried legumes are very good ways of doing this. We have a lot of recipes on the website, which you'll find on the main website under recipes, under resources and then under recipes. We'll give you ideas for using these. We definitely have one article in there that I wrote called Beans Means Health, and it gives you lots of ideas on how to use beans, how to incorporate beans. There's even one for incorporating beans into chocolate brownies, which will delight people. It's a great way of introducing them, and also it makes a nice moist brownie, not a dry brownie. So why are they so good? So first of all, they're a good source of protein as well, and they also provide an essential amino acid called lysine, which helps us absorb calcium and helps transport fats across our cells and burn for energy. They are very rich in total and soluble fiber, and that's really where I find them, most beneficial in the gluten-free diet, because as I said earlier, the cereals that replace wheat in a lot of the foods are lower in fiber. So it's a great way, it's a great product or great ingredient to get into your diet. The aim of the articles that we have devised with the recipes and all that are to basically make your journey a little bit easier to transfer your diet from the diet you did have to the diet. But as I said earlier, it doesn't mean you have to change everything. Look at your diet, look at your daily eating habits and identify under the guises we already spoke of, identify the ones that are naturally gluten-free, the ones that you have to replace. And then, as I said, all the resources are on our website to be able to then go in and see, okay, what do I need to replace? What will I replace it with? And recipes then to incorporate a lot of the good nutrients that we need to boost in the diet. If there are any questions anybody would like to ask, I'd be glad to answer.
It's great that you are, Frances. Let me just put one question to you that has come in on the Q&A. If a food package says gluten-free, but is not on the Celiac Society food list, is it okay to eat these?
Okay, so some products aren't listed with us, and that can be for various reasons, but if it's in Ireland and it says gluten-free on the packaging, then for the manufacturer to put that, they have to have had the product tested at below 20 parts per million.
Okay, and what I would like to just reiterate to everybody is the fact that we actually get all brands and all food manufacturers to sign a legally binding declaration in order to be listed with us in the food list. And what that means is that if the product has less than 20 parts per million of gluten in it, and they can confirm that it has been produced in an environment where there is no risk of cross-contamination, that is when they will sign that legally binding declaration, and the food will then be in our food list, either in the book, which I will show you here. Oh, very badly book, there we go. Or it'll be on our app. Now, the thing about the food list book is that it is printed at a specific time during the year. So it is printed in January every year, but it's static. If you think about it, it never changes. Our food list app, the Minding Me gluten-free app, which you can download on your smartphone, and I highly recommend that everybody download it onto their smartphone. You can do it through the Apple Store or the Google Store for Android and Apple. And on that app, it's updated regularly. It's updated practically every week with new products, new brands, and they, again, remember, have all signed a legally binding declaration to state that the product is has less than 20 parts per million of gluten, and also has been produced in a contamination-free environment. So if it's in the food list, yes, you can eat it. If it's on the app, yes, you can eat it. If it's not in our app and you feel it should be, there is, or in our food list and you feel it should be, there is a feature of the app which allows you to actually send us products that we may not have listed. And that way, what we can do then is we can go specifically to the manufacturer or the producer and get them to sign the legally binding declaration, which means that you've got double protection. Not only does it say on the packet it's gluten-free, but you've also got the double protection of the declaration signed in the background by the manufacturer and the food producer to state that it's been produced in a contamination-free environment. Just looking to see, oh, we've another couple of questions coming in here, Frances, which is...
Jill, I'd like to just pop in there. There's one where somebody's asking about, do I need to buy completely new pots and pans and frying pans and things like that? Those can be thoroughly cleaned in a dishwasher to remove any residue of gluten from them. So, you know, the temperatures are sterilizing temperature in the dishwasher. So in terms of pots and pans, there would be not really any great need to go out and buy completely new ones.
Okay.
But keep the ones you're using for your own.
Okay, just want to also pop one here for what's the name of the app, please? It's called the Minding Me gluten-free app. But if you go on to the Apple App Store or the Google or the Android App Store and just search for Celiac Society of Ireland, it'll come up there as well. And remember, it's free to members to download, and you can have it on up to 5 devices, regardless of whether you have an individual membership or a family membership. Frances, what's the best way to clean the surfaces, utensils, to make them safe? For example, with warm soap or cold with fairy liquid?
The hotter the water, would be the best water, and fairy liquid is good because it cleans very thoroughly. In industry, obviously, use a thing called D10, but that's you know, usually unavailable. It's a sanitizer, food safe sanitizer. But yeah, hot water, thoroughly cleaned down with hot water, and the fairy washing up liquid, or you know, a good washing up liquid is very good.
Great. Here's a good one, Frances. What about eating out? You often see menus with gluten-free options. I'm assuming that doesn't mean the preparation is gluten-free.
It's not mandatory that restaurants put a gluten-free option on the menu, but some do choose. Now, some will have them tested, and some will have safe production methods. They may use a different kitchen. They may buy in from a gluten-free manufacturer. They might buy in the meals, you know, individually packed. So it varies from place to place, but don't be afraid when you're in a place to ask them about their procedures, and ask them, you know, how it's prepared.
Frances, I know you sit on the allergen subcommittee with the Food Safety Authority of Ireland. Is this something that you guys have been talking about over the last couple of months?
They've been talking about the, you know, there's the allergen labeling for pre-packed, and now the allergen labeling. Allergens have to be listed. That's mandatory. So when you're looking for an option for yourself, the allergens is the way to read the menu. So the allergens will have to be listed.
And is it incumbent upon the caterer, the hospitality place like the restaurant or the cafe, if they list something as gluten-free, do they have to ensure that it is produced in a part of the kitchen that is safe from cross-contamination?
They have to say that they have procedures in place.
Okay. And you can ask as a consumer and as a customer that they have these procedures in place.
You can ask. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I have another question in here from Jerry. He's not newly diagnosed, but he happens to be one of the group of, unfortunately, of celiacs who cannot tolerate so-called gluten-free oats. Oats are now in so many gluten-free foods that it's very annoying, especially if friends buy something thinking that they can eat it, that Jerry can eat it. Why is there little or no reference made to this issue here about the fact that some celiacs can't tolerate oats? Apparently in Australia, he says that no oat containing products are allowed to label themselves as gluten-free. Do you know anything about that, Frances?
I'm not aware of it in Australia, but I know that here it still is, that they are, because it's like 5% of people. But again, they, under law, European law, they have to list the ingredients.
Okay.
For someone who can't tolerate oats, you will have to read that from the gluten-free, or sorry, from the list of ingredients.
Okay, all right. I have a question from Terry. Are spices okay, particularly for our Christmas gluten-free baking? Well, Terry, I will jump in very quickly there and tell you that in our new pop-up shop here in Clondalkin, in the village in Clondalkin, we actually have some gluten-free puddings, Christmas cakes and other Christmas goodies. If you did want to save yourself the hassle of cooking this Christmas, by all means, drop into us and check out our Christmas range. But Frances, I know this is also something you've been working on for us over the last couple of months.
Yeah, we've had kind of an issue with one of the larger manufacturers not listing because it had changed manufacturing site or something like that. So we do have spices and herbs listed in the book, and we're currently working on getting some more of those, you know, some other lists in for the new app and for the new publication next year. But at the moment, there are some in the book, in the food list book, that can be ordered, and so if they're single, you can again look for allergens, because they have to, as I say, list allergens. If there's wheat or gluten in there, they have to be highlighted in the ingredients.
Okay. Frances, you've been helping us as well with regard to the products that we're going to be having in our pop-up shop. Now, the pop-up shop is based in Clondalkin in Dublin 22. We're on the Tower Road in Clondalkin. And basically, if you put into Google Maps 78 to 80 Tower Road, Clondalkin, Celiac Society is on that road, and there's ample parking around for you. And we'd be delighted to have you pop in and check out what we have. So like I said, we also have some Christmas goodies. We have Christmas puddings, Christmas cakes. Frances, what else are we? I've been busy trying to do all the logistics.
So the aim of that was really just to try and get to members some of the products that are not so easily available. So some of the products we have there are ones that are usually only available online. One of the ones that comes to mind is Chocolatey Claire. Her products are vegan and gluten-free, and they are available in the shop. The other ones we're delighted to have is Porter and Nash, who've just literally got their certification for gluten-free. So
what do Porter and Nash provide?
Porter and Nash they're an Irish company set up by chefs, and they do absolutely fabulous sauces. So they're made with total vegetable base. It's like a reduction of lots of root vegetables to really intensify the flavor. They also, to get the lovely umami that you normally get from, you know, beef or from that kind of, you know, that kind of really steak, they've added, they've used seaweed. So they're very, very, like they're fat-free, they're vegetarian, and they're gluten-free.
So perfect for the gravy for the Christmas dinner, which is perfect, which is exactly what I was thinking.
They do an original gravy, which you can use, you know, and add your own flavorings to. They also do one that's a balsamic and reduction type one, and then they do one that's a roasted garlic and thyme. So that
sounds fantastic.
Making things like bourguignon or chicken chasseur or any of those kind of things if you don't want to be vegetarian. But they're very useful sauces. I think people certainly you know, any of the members I've spoken to about them have been delighted, because it's, you know, it's hard to get nice sauces that are definitely gluten-free.
Okay.
So they're delighted with those. And of course we have some of the other ones that are sometimes hard to get, like unglued, and we have a range of products that aren't available in Ireland, but will be available. I think it won't be till Thursday, and they're called Creative Nature. And they do things like mixes for children to make their own cakes. They do muffin mixes, they do birthday cake mixes. They also do a delicious cocoa, certified gluten-free cocoa. They also do bars, they do all that kind of...
Okay, great. Frances, just in relation to the spices in the book, which is Hambledon's, is this the one that you were talking about earlier? Are they stocked in Ireland, and are they still...
No, they're only available online, but we have spoken to them, and there isn't an import duty on them. As I said, until we get, as I said, we're avidly searching out Irish ones to list with us, but just at the moment that hasn't happened. So we also do have online on our website some recipes that I did up for people to use fresh herbs, because people don't know and don't know how to store them and don't get very much life out of them. They go wilted and all that. So that article is there, and it tells people, you know, how to use the fresh herbs and how to keep them, and how that they'll get a better life out of them, you know.
Okay. Read the pots and pans. Boiling water, washing up liquid is sufficient if you're not putting them through the dishwasher.
Boiling water and washing up liquid is sufficient.
We have a question in here in relation to a gentleman who's having his endoscopy tomorrow. Wait until you get the full results, Tom. You should start the gluten-free diet once your consultant and your GP have confirmed that you have celiac disease. There's no point going on a gluten-free diet if you don't need to be on it, and wait for the full results from your GP and your consultant. I would highly recommend that. In relation to cross-contamination, you mentioned mild complications. One of our listeners here this afternoon mentioned the mild complications. If you are diagnosed celiac and you eat gluten and you feel that you have mild symptoms, the symptoms are not indication of the damage. The damage is being done to your gut. Regardless of the symptoms you have, if you've been diagnosed to celiac, the lining of your gut is being damaged, meaning that you will inevitably experience complications with deficiencies in your diet. So if you have been diagnosed as celiac, the strict gluten-free diet is the way to go. Not a half diet, not a bit of a diet, a full strict gluten-free diet. I'm sorry now for raining on your parade there. No small amount of gluten is good for anybody who's been diagnosed with celiac disease. I'm going to Scotland for Christmas. If it's gluten-free there, is it okay for me? I would highly recommend you look at the Celiac UK website. Celiac UK cover all of the nations in the United Kingdom, and they may be able to help you there. Again, we would have worked closely with the UK in the past, given that they were also governed by EU regulations. They would have had the same a similar approach to foods being included in their app or on their website to us. I don't know if that's still the case or not, but I would recommend contacting Celiac UK and asking them for some help in relation to that. Frances, would you know of any gluten-free vegan sausages? We used to have Ds for burgers and sausages, and she's wondering, the lady is still wondering if they are gluten-free.
I don't actually know of any ones that are gluten-free and vegan, to be honest. But I can certainly search that and get back to the lady if they'd like to send me my...
Yeah. So Shelley, you were asking the question. If you send that to info@celiac.ie, any questions you have for Frances that we don't get to answer here today, please put them into info@celiac.ie with Frances as the subject, or question for Frances as the subject, and we'll get them off to Frances for you to get answered. Another question: should we be getting checked often? If you are newly diagnosed, or even if you've been diagnosed a couple of years, it is highly recommended that you speak with a dietitian once a year, and you also get your bloods tested once a year. Your bloods tested once a year are very important. You should always get your bloods tested at least once a year, and you should be speaking with a dietitian again at least once a year. And remember, as members of the Celiac Society of Ireland, you actually get a subsidised rate to see a dietitian if you cannot get to see a dietitian through the HSE or through your own healthcare provider. If your doctor is quite convinced you are celiac and you are very sick, can you start the gluten-free diet while awaiting a scope? No, sorry, Maria, you can't. Highly recommended that you unfortunately stick to your gluten diet until you get the results of your endoscopy. Cannot emphasize that enough. It's really important that if you have high TTGs and you're waiting for the scope, I'm really, really sorry, you must stick to the gluten diet, not a gluten-free diet, and you must stick to the gluten diet because it's the only way that they will get a gold standard answer. I've also got some other things here as well. Emer makes a comment that the things she's noticed that people don't understand, that something can be labelled gluten-free but have barley or malt listed as allergens in the ingredients. Frances, I know you have an opinion on that.
Well, it's not actually my opinion, but I've had this question from a lot of our members, and I've gotten on to the manufacturers to find out the reasons. So the reason behind these, where the product says it's gluten-free, it has been tested and it does have less than 20 parts per million. But under law, they have to list the ingredients. So it's during the processing. A lot of the time in this case, with those kind of sauces, it's like distillation. So in that process, the gluten is reduced to way below. I mean, most of them would test in at like 10 parts per million. So the product is tested and it is gluten-free, but by law they have to include the ingredient list. Yeah.
Now, just on that, Emer, as well, part of our research team is actually sitting with the food and dietetic team here in the society, and it's something we're actually actively working with. We're actually thinking about going out and asking Teagasc to help us to develop a test to test vinegars, malt vinegars in particular, just to try and help put some clarity around that as well. So it's something we're looking at doing in the new year. I have another question in here. If you've come up as negative on a celiac test, okay, now again, Jen, has that been a TTG and a biopsy, but are considered non-celiac gluten sensitive, should you be following the same protocol as someone who is celiac? Well, speaking as somebody who is non-celiac gluten sensitive, I try my best to avoid gluten in all situations. From a cross-contamination perspective, I personally try my best again just to prepare foods that are gluten-free at home, but I don't pay particular attention, I have to admit, when I go out. With my partner and my wife to find out if it's being prepared in a contaminated environment. So what I would ask is, ask the question. But if you would like, Jen, what we can do is we can actually follow up on that. And again, if you send that question into info@celiac.ie with the subject Sarah Kyo non-celiac gluten sensitivity in the subject line, we'll try and get some answers for you. Okay. In relation to your Tesco goodie bags, you'll be able to pick them up from Sunday. We'll send out your QR codes to get that to you. The The address again is 78 to 80 Tower Road, Clondalkin, Dublin 22. And of course, yes, you will be able to go onto the glutenfreelivingshow.ie website, and through some of the stands there, you'll be able to book, or be able to, sorry, purchase products through that as well. I'm just seeing if we have any more questions here. Lots of thank yous. Thank you, guys. Really looking forward to having you down to the shop as soon as possible. Catherine, I see you're on a long waiting list for your endoscopy. Should I keep eating gluten? Yes, unfortunately, Pet, I'm really sorry. That is the hardest thing to tell somebody who's going for a celiac test, is to stay on the gluten when you know yourself that it doesn't make you feel well. And I'm really sorry about that. But it's for the best to get the best result, you have to stay on the gluten.
Could I just hop in there just to mention, I'm not sure if we mentioned earlier, but if anybody would like a food session, I run those now for the society as well. Just, I know some people feel that they're kind of eating the same foods over and over again, and they want to look at that. Some people have a problem with their cross-contamination at home. So if there's any particular question that somebody has, we have those sessions available.
Absolutely, and I highly recommend a 45-minute session with Frances. Is amazing. We've had some great feedback from people who've just been newly diagnosed, or indeed just want to mix it up a little bit at home from a dietary perspective and a meal prep perspective. So really highly recommend a chat with Frances. You can find out more on the celiac.ie website and go in that way. In relation, coming back to the spices again, some people are a bit confused about this. It's the fact that while the spice may be dry in the box or in the chassis, it's where it has been dried and where it actually has been chopped up and made into the dried oregano or the dried basil. You don't know if that's been actually prepared in a factory or a production line that has had gluten on it. Okay, so that's where the risk lies. So,
and also even in the growing space, a lot of them can't guarantee that there's not contamination from wheat in a field beside where the thyme's grown, or stuff coming in from, they're not all coming from Ireland. Some of them are coming from, some of the spices are coming in from the Far East, and some of them are coming in from Egypt, and so they can't guarantee that there's not a field of something beside it, so they won't label them gluten-free. Okay.
Guys, I'm conscious of the time. We're coming up to just 5 to 2 here, and I just really want to just run this poll now. And this one is actually a standalone poll in its own right. So now, after having had, I suppose, this introductory class with Frances, let me launch this. What do you think your knowledge is like now? Okay, and you only have to answer the one question here, guys. And I really would appreciate it if you could all just participate in this. Tom, I see you have your test tomorrow. The best of luck to it. It's the same thing. A gastroscopy is an endoscopy. It's the exact same thing, Pet, and the very best of luck with it. And if you get diagnosed as celiac, you know exactly where we are, and we're here to help you as much as we possibly can. All right? So, Frances, can I just say a huge thank you? It literally means that we're getting basically everybody's knowledge is now an awful lot better than what it was at the start of the talk. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in this afternoon, all 112 of you. So you're all part of a wonderful community, and I'm delighted to say that you are part of my community and our community here in the Celiac Society of Ireland. And I look forward to seeing you all for the rest of the week. And don't forget, get in your cars, get on your Shanks Mayors, get on your two-wheelers, and come down and check out the pop-up shop here in Clondalkin. And also, a chat with Frances is very much worth your while, guys. Highly recommend it. It'll be the best 45 quid to spend this side of Christmas. Talk to you all soon. Frances, thanks a million, and see you soon.
Bye. Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.